The area, once a floodplain near an ancient river, became the collective grave of an entire herd. A tragedy preserved in time. A macabre photograph of a moment of natural horror. The rain, it fell in a torrential downpour. Within a matter of hours, the water transformed a familiar and safe territory into chaos. Mud, raging currents, and despair. The ground, saturated and unstable, began to collapse. The Centrosaurus, caught by surprise, tried to flee, but the mass escape only generated more destruction. Those at the front were the first to fall. Many were trampled by their panicked companions. Others were swept away by the force of the flood, dragged into lower areas where they were buried alive by the mud that consumed everything. Some, younger or already weakened, simply could not keep pace with the herd. Death was swift for some, slow and agonizing for others. What remained was a tangled mass of bodies compressed under the weight of tons of flesh, bone, and earth. And then, with time, silence. Decomposition gave way to fossilization. Horror turned into geological record. Millions of years later, humans would excavate that soil with brushes, spatulas, and a patience that rivaled the passage of time itself. Paleontologists would reveal to the world an unprecedented discovery. More than 10,000 bones belonging to a single species in a single location. The drowning cemetery had been revealed. The scientist's interpretation was immediate and brutal. Two names, two destinies sealed in a confrontation as brutal as it was intimate. On one side, Protoeratops, a medium-sized herbivore with a large bony frill and a beak sharp as scissors. I've always been struck by the image of the Velociraptor, that agile predator, intelligent, with its curved, lethal claws, especially the sickle-shaped claw on its feet. It's a weapon that has inspired myths and films for decades. But one fossil I know reveals something more than just names or shapes. It reveals a precise instant of combat. Imagine this: the Velociraptor, leg raised, driving its killing claw into the neck of a Protoceratops. The herbivore, in response, with its powerful jaws, biting down hard on the attacker's arm. Both immobilized, locked in a final desperate struggle for survival. There was no victor. The outcome was mutual death. The sand, rich in minerals and compacted over time, became an extraordinary agent of preservation. The fossil preserved not only the bones, but also their relative positions. Limbs, teeth, claws, everything is there, frozen, as if time itself had paused to record the raw ferocity of nature. Now let's travel to what we know today as Montana, in the United States. Approximately 66 million years ago, one of the most brutal confrontations of the Cretaceous period reached its end. There, amid a world dominated by colossal reptiles, the sound of death echoed. A dull impact, muffled by a blow of unimaginable force. The supreme predator of that ecosystem, the legendary Tyrannosaurus Rex, met its end in a shocking and unexpected way. Its name now echoes through museum halls and across the pages of paleontological studies as a symbol of both violence and fragility. This particular fossil, nicknamed Pex Rex, tells a story unlike any other. When scientists analyzed the fossilized skeleton of this Tyrannosaurus Rex, they discovered something extraordinary: a massive puncture wound in the neck, exactly where vital arteries, the trachea, and crucial muscles responsible for supporting the head are located. It was as if someone had driven a spear with devastating force straight into the animal's vital systems. But this spear was not made of metal. It was bone, the horn of a Triceratops. The scene begins to take shape in the minds of paleontologists. A close-quarters confrontation, a decisive strike, a hunting attempt that went wrong. The greatest terrestrial predator of its era, a formidable hunter, became the prey. Bone fragments found around the puncture indicate that the impact was deep. So deep that it pierced soft tissues, blood vessels, and likely perforated the trachea. There are no signs of healing at the site of the wound. No attempt by the body to initiate a recovery process. This means only one thing. The blow was fatal, or, at the very least, the direct cause of death. The fossil, designated MO980, was discovered in 1997 by a geologist named Bob Harmon while excavating a region known for its Cretaceous deposits. The nickname Peck's Rex was given in honor of Lewis Peck, the owner of the ranch where the fossil was found. Since then, Peck's Rex has fascinated scientists and the public alike because of its story, its end, its silent message written into every fracture, every shattered bone. There are also the sites showing mass group deaths. Dinosaurs buried alive. In many parts of the world, paleontologists have unearthed true dinosaur cemeteries, with skeletons tangled together as if the animals died in the midst of a desperate attempt to escape. And that is exactly what happened. They tried to flee. They tried to survive, but there was no time. Sandstorms, violent floods, mudslides, sudden and merciless natural forces that transformed the landscape in the blink of an eye. And those who lived there were swallowed alive by the very environment they once called home. These fossil sites reveal something rare. Moments of prehistoric life frozen in time, not in isolation, but in community. Entire dinosaur families, from juveniles to adults, preserved side by side. Their deaths bearing witness to an instant of collective panic. These were not natural deaths, isolated or spread out over time. They were sudden events, catastrophic moments when nature turned against its own children with devastating fury. In China, within the Yixian Formation, entire groups of Psittacosaurus, small bipedal herbivores, have been found piled together in layers of volcanic sediment. All evidence suggests they were buried alive by ash from a sudden eruption. In Mongolia, sandstorms engulfed dinosaurs in mid-motion. Their poses, preserved within the desert, reveal final attempts to escape an inevitable death. In Madagascar, a mudslide captured an entire group of Majungasaurus, feared predators that, according to the evidence, had no time to fight back. They were crushed, immobilized, preserved. And what about discoveries in North America? In locations such as the Morrison Formation in the United States, the remains of Diplodocus and other sauropods appear grouped in patterns suggesting entire herds were wiped out at once by sudden floods. These sites allow us to see beyond death. They show us how dinosaurs lived, how they organized themselves into herds, families, and social structures, and how even in groups they were vulnerable to the power of nature. Then there's the story of the Pachyrhinosaurus crushed in a stampede. In the petrified silence of time, when the world was still ruled by gigantic reptiles, a tragedy unfolded beneath the darkened skies of ancient North America. These bones belong to Pachyrhinosaurus, a gregarious herbivore whose head was adorned with thick bony bosses rather than sharp horns. But it is not this animal's appearance that draws attention. It is the way it died. Paleontologists, carefully excavating a vast rock formation in what is now the Canadian territory of Alberta, encountered a macabre scene. Dozens of Tyrannosaurus fossils stacked atop one another, with bones crushed and fractured. Imagine a herd of Tyrannosaurus, peaceful herbivores, suddenly seized by a terror we can barely comprehend. The fractures in their fossilized bones don't tell of a simple fall or a predator's attack. Instead, they speak of something far more chaotic, a stampede. Compression marks suggest these animals, gripped by panic, collided in a desperate blind flight. Scientists envision a scene of absolute terror, a herd in frenzy, perhaps startled by wildfire or a sudden storm. Some fall, others stumble, and the weight of tons of flesh and bone becomes a deadly instrument. Among the fossils, we find juveniles, adults, even hatchlings. This tells us they lived and died as a family, maybe protecting their young in defensive circles, like modern elephants. But no defense can withstand the force of pure panic. Not all died instantly. Some fossils show healed fractures, evidence that certain individuals survived for a time, even with broken bones. Others show signs of acute, lethal trauma. Microfractures reveal that the force didn't come from above, as in a landslide, but from all directions, as if the bodies were compressed within a living mass of desperation. Paleontologists call this herd death, a natural catastrophe that, ironically, preserves fossils so well. Then there's the Carnotaurus with the fractured jaw. I think of this feared predator, a force of nature roaming what is now South America more than 70 million years ago. Its name, meaning meat-eating bull, reflects its status as one of the largest and most agile theropods of its time. But even kings have weaknesses. The fossil revealed a mystery, a significant, unhealed fracture in its jaw. The break was clear and deep, compromising its ability to hunt, feed, and survive. It wasn't a superficial fracture. It was a severe rupture in the lower jawbone, causing extreme pain and hindering even basic movements. The absence of healing was the first clue. When an animal survives a fracture, the bone shows evidence of repair, new tissue, calluses, adjustments to restore function. But in this fossil, the fracture was raw, as if it occurred just before death. Scientists hypothesize that this Carnotaurus died shortly after the injury, perhaps from something even more cruel, starvation. Unable to fully open its jaw or apply the force to kill prey, it may have slowly wasted away. Imagine its suffering, every bite sending waves of pain through its body. A predator transformed into a shadow, pushed out of territorial disputes, abandoned by prey, perhaps even by its own kind. And then there's the Tyrannosaurus Rex, its bones bearing the marks of another Tyrannosaurus Rex. Crocodiles, sharks, even bears sometimes resort to cannibalism when they need to. Why would it have been any different 66 million years ago? Then there's the more dramatic possibility, a fight between two Tyrannosaurus Rex individuals. Maybe it was over territory, or mating rights, or dominance over a kill. And at the end of the fight, the victor might have consumed parts of the defeated rival. We see it today too. Wolves, for example, may kill members of rival packs and then feed on them. It makes Tyrannosaurus Rex not just a killing machine, but an animal with complex social behaviors. Extreme ones at that.